All right, once again, I'll say we're opening tonight's meeting and we'll begin with our council roll call. In-house, first we have Ron Evans.
Here.
Emily Schofield.
Here.
Danny Nielsen. Here. Myself, Tim Kirsch, out in Zoom land, Janet Hall.
Present.
All right, I think that's all that we have out there right now, correct? Anybody else on the board that's in Zoom? I don't think so. I'd like to also make mention that we have with us tonight our attorney Tommy Brooks from Cable Houston. I see also the City of Mill City's attorney here, Jim McGee. We have Laura Conroy from the COG, who represents the staff for the North Salem Sewer Authority. And looks like from Marion County, we have Chris Imo. Chris? All right, thank you everyone, like I say, for coming down and joining us. Announcements, any announcements that anybody has would like to make? Nothing there. Public comments and question. I don't see a lot of public here raising their hands. So we will move right into the new business with the template ordinance to compel. Tommy, it says that you are on deck for that.
I am. So before this meeting, briefly, you received a packet, and it's a discussion draft of a connection ordinance. And the connection ordinance being to connect the collection system, or for property owners to connect to the collection system. This was sort of the next phase of the work that was assigned to us to come up with a template that would be able to be used for multiple cities, since 3 of the cities don't currently have collection systems, with the idea that eventually these 2 plants will come online, we need to be able to connect them, connect the properties to those plants, and to get the ball rolling to start those regulations. So I apologize if you hadn't had enough time to read it. I think before we dive into it, there's a couple big caveats here, which is, one is, this is like everything else, this is just kind of the start, right? There's a lot of work that has to be done in terms of the regulatory environment in order to operate a collection system. And you'll remember from the IGA discussion, there was a discussion about having rules and regulations that govern how users, once they are connected, will actually use the system. So there's like pre-treatment requirements, other things. That's not in here. That is still going to be informed by permitting requirements and the requirements of the actual treatment plant. But there is sort of, this is designed to accommodate that and be in there. Notably, the other thing that this does not do is say exactly how it's going to get paid for. It is very generic in that typically there would be a customer is required to connect. There would be a connection charge. Usually the city would collect the actual cost of doing that. But the idea that's been floating around too is that hopefully there'll be a way to actually pay for those connections for the initial conversion for everyone who's on septic right now to come off the septic and to connect the system. So what we have in there is a placeholder, sort of with the draft understanding that that kind of program will be implemented at the same time. But that discussion, I mean, we don't have any details about what that kind of program would look like, the timing of it. Is there going to be a set pot of money? Is it first come, first served? Is it everyone comes in and we dole out the money on a pro rata basis? There's just so many details there. But we very firmly baked it into the same idea that there will be a program like that. So I wanted you to kind of be prepared for that. Outside of that, it's a pretty standard, what I call standard connection requirement. City, establishes some policy that it wants everyone to connect and come off the septics. That from that point on, the maintenance of the septic systems won't be allowed, and everyone will have to use the system as long as it's available. We use the phrase immediately available to show that there's gonna be some engineering standard out there that says, you know, I think the plan right now, at least what my understanding is, developed properties will basically all have access to, for example, like gates would all have access to the system that's being designed. But there could be some one-offs, there could be something that's, someone's tucked around the corner, or it's too far away or something, and so we, from a template standpoint, we designed it so that to really define that a property owner is not required to connect unless it is actually available to connect. And there's a definition around that, that it's basically in the right of way, adjacent to the property, no further extension of the system is needed. The other piece that we did in order to, I guess, accommodate the timing of the fact that this would be a brand new system, is to go ahead and upfront, sort of built in this idea that there would be an exhibit that shows the properties that are going to be where the system is going to be immediately available. So it's not kind of a one-off, we have to like decide regulation goes into place and then you're trying to figure out if it's actually available or not. But all that work should be done up front. List the properties that are developed where there's gonna be easy access to the collection system, and just put that out there and say that basically for purposes of this ordinance, whichever city it is, knows upfront which properties are quote immediately available. That does two things. It, like I said, it prevents you from having to do a sort of case by case analysis of what's available. It also just allows you to sort of prime the pump and just like know who, you know, which property is going to be coming online, which then should inform that program that you have, if you're going to pay for those property owners to get connected. I'm talking a lot, I like questions, you know that, so are we, no questions yet?
Not exactly to that, I was just,
Okay.
I haven't had a chance to read.
That's fair,
it.
that's fair. And then, and again, I'm just sort of going over
Right.
the broad brush of how it's structured, and there will be a lot of details that need to fill in, especially when this goes out to any city that wants to use it, there's a lot of details that we need to fill in.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Presumably now this is public domain and it's addressable to the public. And according to this, we are going to require them to hook up no matter what it costs.
Yes, if your city were to adopt an ordinance like this, that is what you would be doing.
Is there any way to put something in here that says this is one way to do it, or we could make this connection, depending on the situations, potentially optional?
Yes, there's a place for that. So, if you look at section 5, which is on the second page, sorry,
Waivers?
waivers.
Right, so
Right.
that could be,
That's one place where you could build in some criteria and I've got some starter criteria here. One is based on kind of the effect on the system, so potentially there could be an industrial user or someone else that just doesn't fit in the system.
one thing I would like to see under the way it is right now, I would like to see one of that line there being financial hardship as something that would could potentially, get somebody, approved for a waiver.
Let me just take a note since you, let me. Okay. Yeah, so there's, and, go ahead.
Sorry, under section 7, D, the property owner shall be, responsible for the maintenance of all connection facilities on the property after the initial construction of those facilities. Particularly in my case, there's a good chance I'm gonna have a shredder pump put in there because I'm below where the pipe's gonna be. So this says I have to operate and maintain that shredder pump.
Yes, and so very typically in the municipal sewer world, you want to kind of have a hard line at the edge of the right of way between the private property, the public property. And that even gets into sometimes like which codes apply. And so as the starting point here, this effectively says on the public side of the right of way, the city would maintain, and this doesn't give any obligation to private property owners to do anything in the right of way. But the flip side of that is, on the private side, that's all the property owner's responsibility.
My personal take on that one is that Trump has to be in there for the system to work. I have to maintain it and operate it. I should get something for that. I should get a reduction on my bill for the operation and maintenance of that pump.
I think that's
But fails are saying, well, you gotta maintain it, you know, it's $1,500 pump, and you gotta order it and have it put in, and meanwhile, you don't have a septic system while they do it.
yes. So again, this is a template, and each city can do kind of its own tailored thing to
Something to
say,
think about,
yeah, here's the, you know, sort of, you could redraw the line of where you want to take.
What it might be putting in this particular area is that there's an active component of the system on the property that's still part of the system. If the owner gets permission, maybe for that.
Yeah, so, and that would require a lot of discussion about how you would manage that. So for one, if you've got public facilities on the private property, then you would need to add to it some easement rights to be able to get in there and collect it, so, you know, to maintain it. You've got the cost piece of it. Really the task for the city, again, is to decide where is that line? That this side of which you, as a city, want to take ownership and control and maintenance and all the obligations, and on the other side belongs to the private property owner. Does
My
that make sense?
inclination is if there's an active component required for the system, that would be part of the system. Because the vast majority of it is gonna be gravity feed, there'll be nothing on that, but where my case where I go over the pipe, it's gonna take a pump here to get my stuff up to the pipe, and this says I have to maintain and operate that pump.
Right. So as your city has that discussion, I think what you would need in front of you is some analysis about how many properties there are that are like that, what those facilities are, what that obligation is gonna be, and then how you're gonna do the sort of the collection of costs and to maintain that piece of it.
Maybe we put something in here that there's a point of discussion about that.
Yes.
So you'd probably also have to have some component in there that would require them to offer an easement, a property owner to offer an easement as to access to the property too, as part of the condition, for sure.
Yeah.
Like with Mill Cities right now, Mill City owns an interceptor tank that's in there, and the city owns that, but it's on the private property, so we have, with everything, an easement to go in and maintain that tank, and everything from the tank on belongs to the city. Prior to the tank belongs to the household.
I'd be happy with that.
So, yeah, so I would say it'd be just verbiage that would need to be.
Yeah. Okay, yeah,
constructed.
I just want somebody to read this and say, we gotta want to maintain this. What's something you say is being discussed about that.
Right, so that's something that sounds like, I can see where Mill City might have to redraft some of its hookup ordinance, because in the future, the housing that comes in doesn't have to have an interceptor tank, but we have to, it's gravity flow or whatever.
Most of these problems would be is as the interceptor tanks start to fail, then what are we gonna do in no city? Then are we gonna require that to be taken out, decommissioned, and then hooked up by the property owner, say 20, 30 years from now?
Right, and I think some of that'll depend on what Keller's gonna come up with as a proposal to us, and that's just another one of those unknowns yet. I would say.
I think the septic tank will probably last, they're pretty good tanks, it'll probably last a long time, but.
A long time, yeah. So,
And what Mill City did is that they did what's called the blankings. In other words, the property owners went ahead and gave the city a blanket easement to go anywhere in their property as long as it was for the purpose of maintaining the interceptor tank. So we didn't have to have a surveyor come out and do a meets and bounds description, which is cost
very,
prohibitive.
very expensive, yeah.
So that would probably be the way you would handle that if you go that way with that particular, decision. If there's a piece of the equipment on somebody's property and the sewer you know, whoever ends up with the sewer, or ends up going down, is gonna pay for it, you can do that with blanket easement, and, but again, I think what everybody's looking at here is that the bottom line is you gotta pay for the operation and maintenance. And the more you accept, somewhere the money's gotta come from, so,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
But you amortize it over the whole thing, and it's a lot less than you do it yourself, so. This says I have to replace a pump, it's $2,000 pump.
No, I understand, that's the bottom line, I guess, right, isn't that correct, basically?
So just one other quick one, the fact, I know it's probably not possible, but I would like to keep my septic system in place and put a transfer switch for the new one, for at least for a period of time, because in my case, I'll have a pump at my house, and my neighborhood has a pump that goes up to the Gates pump that goes down the pumps and stuff to the city. So I got 3 points to pay. And any one of those would stop my septic. Well, I got a full house generator, so right now I can live there quite comfortably with my septic system because the water normally keeps running. If that shuts down, I have to move out. You just can't live there with no septic, so. What you're saying, even if it was a grace period of a year or something like that, that you could keep your existing system in place with a transfer switch, so if something is or a catastrophic failure, you can switch back and reactivate your septic system. I doubt very seriously DEQ would let us do that, but I would certainly like to if we could.
Definitely something worth mentioning and talking about. No, those are valid points, I would say.
I'm at the end of the line, and I feel uncomfortable about, anything
Have
happens
line
there.
come back at you.
Counselor, can you go back to the hardship topic and can you expand on that a little bit? So we believe that the project is going to be paying for the decommissioning and deconstruction of the septic and then the
Well, this is,
construction of the lateral. So where would the hardship consideration come in?
in this document here, under waivers, it would be a condition to waiver the installation.
But where would the hardship come in? Where is the hardship
They
being for?
have some standard hardships thing for support, like in Gates, and it's 60% of the median income or something like that, below 60% of the
I
median.
think he's assuming that there's a cost involved with hooking up to the sewer.
No, it would be a hardship to pay for the afterwards. What I'm saying.
Oh, to pay for
Oh,
the
you mean like
sewer bill,
rate relief?
You're talking about the sewer bill or?
Yeah, the bill.
the bill, not the hookup.
The
What
bill.
do other municipalities do for sewer bills and hardship cases?
Yeah, I don't know. We have a program up in Gates that'll pay for
I
hardship.
mean, this can't be a new problem.
No, they require them to hook up and then they establish a program where they provide rate relief.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And-
hoping for right there, exactly. So we do need 100% hookup. But I would still like to see a program where somebody is subsistence living, if we come in and hit them with another.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made that clarification because I think we have to have, the component of the.
Yes.
If not, we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, but I feel uncomfortable telling people they have to hook up and take on a $70 bill when they don't have the money to do it. So and the solution to that is to have a program that will pay their bills. And we're working on that. We've actually authorized COG to spend $5,000 investigating, and there was a program in Gates for the water bill, where the people could sign up for that, and if they made less than 60% of the average, that qualified them to get reimbursed for the water bill. So with that program, paid them what the water bill was paying, so it wasn't part of the system. And that seems to be the most efficient, and that's why they're doing that. But that's what I really think. If we're going to force people to hook up, then the people that can't afford to pay for it need to have some out. Or they have to be able
Well, I don't know
to.
that so much out,
Or wait.
other than some opportunity to have to be compensated.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we need to do. So we're actively starting something to look at that. And there's been, Commissioner that said that they support that idea. So there's some support for it, so.
I have a cosmetic issue that was brought to my attention by one of our members who's not attending tonight. And I can't pick it up now, I saw it at home when I read this, but I think it was in the first page labeled discussion draft. There was some reference to Valley,
Yeah.
if you got it, or Valley River rather than
The third-
North Sandy, yeah.
Yeah, in the third paragraph, by using the same starting point, the NSSA's member cities will further their goal of working together to provide wastewater treatment services in a consistent and predictable manner throughout the river valley, and I think the request was throughout the canyon. So, yeah, so. All right, so that next is all the way down.
That's all my questions, sorry.
Back, just to put a fine point on the hardship thing, I think that'll be an important part of the discussion because when you first mentioned it, I thought you were saying that the hardship would be a waiver from the connection at all, which is drastically different than still requiring the connection, but having rate relief that allows someone after they connect to be able to afford it. This document doesn't address rates at all. The city will have to come up with how it's collecting its costs, what those costs include, and then if there's any rate relief on top of it. I think ultimately each city has the choice of whether or not to combine those concepts in one document, but this one just wasn't intended to address that. And we were well aware that that's a big concern.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about people reading this right now and getting the wrong impression, saying that this is fixed and we're gonna force them to hook up and they're gonna have to pay with us $100 a month period, and people are gonna rebel against that.
It's a discussion draft, it's not fixed, there's nothing in here that is anyone is binding themselves to at all. This is an idea.
People reading that makes
I
sense.
understand. I think that is up to you guys to message and collectively through your sort of outreach people to message that. And we will do our best to massage this to make that message clear.
And there will be people that assume that no matter what, there will be people that oppose it no matter what.
That's a good point.
As well, so that there's gonna be that, certain number of people that will oppose it just because it's there. But I see what you're saying, I too assumed you were talking about the hookup and looking for relief.
No, I'm sorry.
From that, but yeah, I would think that these could be programs where the cities, Mill City and Gates have to develop together if we're gonna be operating one thing, because we don't even know exactly how the billing is gonna work yet, whether it's
Well, I would think
collection system is separate from the facility and stuff like that as well.
I think it'd be programmed under the auspices of NSSA, the members board, and it would be applied to everybody in the whole system when they come on board.
Quite possibly, but there's a whole nother side of that where you fund that program.
That's gonna be.
The funding of the program, whether that comes through user fees to begin with or not.
That's something I wouldn't be surprised if after this gets in place for 5 years, we get businesses coming up and we get settled in, we couldn't possibly self-fund that.
Right, so there's gonna be other things that come on down the road as well. This is like Tommy was saying, though, is just to compel initial hookups to make sure that we have that in the system, because that's gonna what makes the whole thing more affordable for everybody as well, is having these connections in there. I was curious, my question is, I like I say, I haven't read through this yet. Is there gonna be an STC component in here?
It's built in that it's possible to have it, that's in section 6, which is on page 3. Just under the waivers, connecting charges and system development charges. Basically, it would just acknowledge each city's right under the statute to establish an SDC. We had similar language in the IGA as well. We're not trying to dictate what the SDCs are right now. You may or may not be able to establish them. You may or may not need them, but we don't want to get rid of that authority to do it when we can. That happens, the statute is pretty prescriptive on how SDCs work, and so this just kind of mirrors that and says the city can charge an SDC.
Okay, because like I said, Mill City currently does. In fact, we're looking at sometime in the near future, reevaluating our SDCs as they are. And for future development, they're pretty critical to have, really. So, okay.
Other things to sort of point out is, the reason that makes this a template and not a full ordinance yet, if we go down to sections 8 and 9, which are on the last page. There needs to be some sort of permitting system, connection permitting system. Where, and this is kind of forward looking in terms of once the system's up and running and there's gonna be a new connection. You need someone to apply for a permit, you need someone to review it from an engineering standpoint to make sure that the connection works. But also, I guess, sort of, for the initial program, I guess, of getting people hooked up where there's never been a collection system before, the city must take that on itself, through the county, through whoever, just to make sure there's some engineering review of the connection itself. That needs to be part of this ordinance. Same, and then the last one that's kind of a big one here is too, is enforcement. You know, what do you do if someone doesn't make the connection? And your law says they have to. I don't know what each city's normal enforcement process is for the rest of your code. So I didn't want to presume there would be any particular process or that we need to have a separate process just for this. Seems like each city ought to look and fold in either that its current system is good enough or no, it's not good enough and we need to bolster it a little bit. You can do a specific enforcement mechanism through this ordinance, or you could just tie it to existing enforcement processes you have. But I haven't had the ability to go look at all 4 cities and just sort of see what you have in place, how it works, if it works, and if it makes sense to do that here. So that's a big reversal there.
Mill City currently has about a dozen that are not hooked up to Mill City. Because we had in our initial plans a thing they called NIPS, not in program or something like that. Not in project, okay, so, there was like 25 holdouts, absolutely refused to to hook up to the sewer system when it was built. Although the city was paying for all the hookups at the time. And it was just simply stated, if you don't hook up now, later, someday, it'll have to happen and you'll have to pay for it yourself. Was basically what it was, in most cities, and since then, the majority of them have hooked up, because of either a failing septic system or a sale of the property, something forced them to have to hook up. And
In the simplest way, just to leave the property and then deal with it later as there's a change.
if somebody really wants to fight it though, they can slow you down and cost you a lot of money.
You know, we had, that project got delayed just probably from, well, maybe 30 or 40 households delayed for at least a year. Just they hired an attorney. I mean, it was a fight to put that sewer system in. You know, the other thing, you know, what Tom was talking about here is that Mill City has municipal court, so we do have some enforcement action to potentially to municipal court. Doesn't mean that we always use municipal court, because sometimes it's better to take everybody down to Albany and have them look at a real judge, and not that Steve isn't a real judge, but it's more formal. Where it's really impressive, and as far as I know, I don't know where Indiana is at. I know Gates and excuse me, I don't know where Detroit's at. I know Gates and Indiana do not have municipal courts. So that would mean you have, you know, you guys have to do something. My guess would be is I'm representing Gates now on a situation. We took somebody to court down in Salem on a nuisance violation. And we're trying to get that thing resolved. I think we're gonna get it resolved, but that's your option only, is to contract with a judicial authority of some sort. You don't have to contract with the state, because the statute allows the municipality to bring an enforcement action at the county level. Some people have contacted with the justice courts, like the Marion County Justice Court, the Lebanon Justice Court, to do their enforcement. So I think that's what Tom was talking about, is you gotta figure out a way If somebody just goes, I'm not hooking up, what are you gonna do to them? Can't break their leg anymore.
Take away their birthday.
Well, I always like the carrot,
Marion County decertified their septic system and shut them down.
yeah. I always like the carrot and the stick approach. Obviously, if you have the carrot where you can offer, we'll hook you up. That's great. And then if you don't do it on your own, then comes the stick a little bit later when they're forced to do it on their own.
My assumption is that cities will want some sort of defined time period. That,
Right.
you know, come in during this period, we will help you, we'll do it for you, whatever
Right.
it is. And so it's built around,
We just
this
have,
language is built around to allow that. But you have to decide what's that, you know.
we haven't defined how much help we're gonna have available to offer to
Right.
hook up, yeah.
Exactly.
So that's something we're hoping to look forward to being able to offer a carrot to hook up, like you say, within this time frame. Yes,
So far, as far as the permit situations go, I mean, Mill City, I think the rest of the city use the county for permits. I would assume the county would have the capability of looking at the system or the hookup and make sure it's gonna be appropriate. To try and do that out of county is gonna be expensive.
but I'm not too sure that just our own city, public works supervisor doesn't go and check off on septics. I don't know exactly what he does. I know he goes out and looks at them and stuff too when they're coming in. But whether the county initially signs off or eventually signs off on it.
I know somebody was checking and we got a bunch of tanks that got covered up, that shouldn't be covered up. So,
Yeah.
Gates, that's handled by the county.
Yeah. So anyway, so I guess that's all in there somehow, and things that we need to look at this a little bit more in depth and give suggestions to Tommy
Yeah.
on what we would like to see in there.
And I am just sort of bombarding you with this as the first
Yeah.
who's seen it. I just wanted you to know how it's structured. Basically, it would require people where the sewer is available to connect. They wouldn't be able to maintain their septic systems if they were in the properties anymore. There should be a program developed to help pay for that. That'll probably be a certain amount of time. After that, it's on the property owner. There's a need to find the line where on one side of which the public owns it, on the other side, the private owns it. And then to have a mechanism to enforce it and eventually charge a rates for it. And this starts to bring all that stuff together.
Okay,
and
so,
this is a template. Gates doesn't necessarily have to have the exact same thing that Mill City has. You know, you can make changes between all four of the cities to what you think fits you best.
because quite honestly, we might still require interceptor tanks. I don't know if every new house built is gonna be able to free flow or whatever. I don't know. We're gonna be talking with the engineers and stuff and getting design recommendations yet that we just don't have the answer to.
Well, the nice thing about this draft is well organized, it's very flexible, and it allows the cities to be very flexible in their own right and tailor
Right.
the needs of our system to each and every, but I like the comment you made that you felt Gates and Mill City should be working together on these things. And if it ever occurs that the Upper Canyon has a municipal wastewater system, given our recent economic developments for funding, I guess we'll worry about that and we'll watch you all in the meantime.
In the grand scope of here to final commissioning, when does this need to be finalized?
So under your IGA with Marion County, you were required to at least present that to your city council before the end of May. So, we will need to work with the Gates City Council to get it into some version that you can at least take on your, you can at least review. And we've been in conversation about who will help you do that, because as Tommy mentioned, this will require an engineer and an attorney to help you kind of fill this out and make it tailor.
So we present it in May and then
Yeah,
the next milestone will be approved. When would
Yes.
that be?
as soon as possible, as soon as you can get it approved. So, because the engineers need to know, as you know, for design purposes, whether they're gonna be able to get those solids from Gates. And they need to know that. I mean, the facility study right now assumes that they're getting that. And so right? So they're assuming that, so that needs to happen as soon as possible. It also will impact, our ability, the COG's ability to, look for funding to assist your community with, their monthly bills. So it's a little bit hard to talk to a funder about helping to assist with the payment of monthly bills if the city has a compelled connection, right? I mean, so one sort of follows the next. So the city is saying, we'll compel connection if this, if that, if this, and then we can talk to funders about, okay, if some of this gets constructed, we're gonna need a fund to help them pay their monthly bills. So as soon as possible, before June.
Well, now that you've mentioned the deadlines for approval, where are we in terms of the IGA and language that's been modified that we can present soon to our city council?
You have met your deadline for the, overarching IGA on the treatment facilities, which is that you presented it to your council. The Gates City Council will need to at least take up this ordinance. And then there's one more piece, which is the construction delivery agreement, which needs to be presented as well. And then you will be in compliance with the IGA, with the county, with the technical components of it. Now, the spirit of it, of course, is that I'm just realizing, your attorney should maybe be telling you all this, but I've been sort of administering this for you, sorry. And so you've met the spirit. Now, the intention though, is you've got a project piece here. So the reason you needed to move all these together is so that the county can really get going on everything they need to do. So they needed to know that there was going to be a governance structure in place to manage that ownership, of the assets. You created that with Gable Houston, and you presented that to the councils, and, I think you're in revision mode, which is great. The sooner that you can give, and the next piece is the, ordinance to compel, the sooner you can bring that type of certainty, who owns it, who's gonna manage it, and do we have gates or not? The sooner you can bring that certainty to the project, the better and more smoothly the project will go. So that is the reality of it, never mind the legal pieces of it. The sooner you can make decisions, the more smoothly the engineers can plan for it. And I guess I will look to Brian Nicholas for any comments on that.
So,
Just a second. Brian, you have any more pieces on that?
No, nothing to add.
Or Chris? Okay.
just one thing, that, since Gates isn't funded yet, probably it would be nice to have some caveat in here that this only applies if we didn't get funded for the full implementation of the system. We're signing documents on things that don't exist.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I had the same thought. I mean, to me, it seems a little preposterous for Detroit and Hyannis to be approving anything at this point because we don't really have anything to approve. There's not even a design process. So I'm just wondering about the need for the Upper Canyon in terms of things you just talked about.
And so on this particular ordinance, there's no need for you to adopt it. I mean,
Thank you.
that's where the cities have relative control. If you don't want it to be in place yet, don't adopt it.
Okay.
The work though needs to be done to get it in place so you know what you might adopt, so that, because it feeds into these construction delivery agreements, it feeds into how the IDA gets implemented. And all these pieces kind of need to be ready to go when it's time to go. But I don't, like, for Gates, I don't see a reason to like adopt it now because it's A, it's not finished, but B, you have some other timing considerations you need to make sure get all lined up.
I think plus also your verbiage of immediately available. And it's nowhere near immediately available now.
Good, yeah.
Right,
So
so
that's kind of,
until the collection
You know,
system.
for the Upper Canyon, this is a great discussion because I can then on a regular basis inform our residents and council what's going on here and keep them engaged mentally, intellectually about what's going on down here so that when the time comes, it's not like something dropped out of the heavens.
Yeah, and on the off chance that this is not perfect, you'll be able to revise it before it gets to you.
So, and it's not, and we will.
so the issue, it would be perfect. When it does get to you, it'll be perfect.
Well,
Perfected.
it will always be a work in progress, no matter what.
So I don't know,
So, I'm sorry, we just had a little sidebar over here, so I just needed to clarify with Tommy something you said, so Gates needs to adopt an ordinance rather quickly if it wants to be considered as part of the project. It's true there's not funding, but it's a bit of a chicken and an egg. In order to get funding, you have to argue that Gates is ready to receive the project if the funding comes. And so with the caveat that you've described, like, there has to be funding in order for us to compel connection so that we can pay for it. But you need to be ready to catch the car, as Scott likes to say, right? So you need to adopt this ordinance in order to make it more likely that your project will come to you.
And the other piece that's baked in here, and if I were advising Gates, I would say, focus on the effective date of the ordinance. So all the timing pieces can be tailored for each city's needs, so you can actually adapt it and make sure it gets rolled out in a way that's synced up with the rest of the project.
Tim made a very good point too. The wordage in here says this is active when it's available.
right, so
Doesn't
can't
become
force you to hook
available.
up if there's nothing to hook up to.
Right.
So,
They can't.
we got the available, yeah, so that's it, that isn't out, so.
So I guess my recommendation would be to let your council see this discussion draft, ask them to write down any questions or anything that they want to see revised, have that discussion in one of your meetings,
Right, we can do that.
get that back to Tommy to, see if there's a way to incorporate it into the document and move forward with there.
And we're available to come talk to Gates about it. So, yeah.
You received no city stuff yet?
No.
No, okay. I'll talk to Stacy tomorrow about that. We had a meeting, we had a lot of things I put together, and I thought it gone to Dave Kenny for review. And I thought Dave had sent it on to you guys, but you haven't seen it yet? Okay, I'll talk to Stacy tomorrow about where that's at, what we need to do together. Who do you want to both of you? Yeah.
And that's what they actually.
That's all.
Okay, so, yeah.
That's all. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured they'd be getting it off to you here shortly, but we just did it here this last week. Yeah, so.
We would have spoken to you too.
Yeah, warp speed.
Okay, so is there anything more you'd like to
No, unless you have questions
point out
about,
to us?
just general questions. I mean, I think as you dive into it, you'll see more how it's structured. Hopefully it reflects how I described it. And if you have questions, just let us know.
Is this one, so this is mostly designed for gates, to compel gates, but Mill City's gonna have something similar, or what do we have in place?
Yeah, so you already have a connection ordinance in
Right.
place. Some of this language actually mirrors that because I wanted it to be sound familiar in the canyon. Some of it's a little bit different from some newer ones. This was not drafted really with Bill City's needs in mind, because you already have it, and you already have a system in place, so it was really what the other three cities think they could make use of it. So I haven't really thought through, by
Yeah,
itself.
I can only see ours really having to change if we have a section that is developed where they don't have to put in the interceptor tanks, where we have to make the definition of where the city's property and where the homeowner owns it, and this, a couple of little things like that.
Right.
So, but until we have a number of those.
I drafted that thing 30 years ago, and I don't think that would pass. It's probably needs to be looked at anyway.
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah. So, okay. Very good. Anybody have any further questions or comments on this here discussion draft with the sewer connection ordinance?
I actually have a question about when you talked about needing an engineer to participate, what that process looks like. I mean, does Gates hire an engineer to help figure out that? I'm not really sure what our next step is to write section 8.
So there would be an engineer, someone to sign off in a couple places in your process. So of course, the initial construction, right? Marion County will take care of, right? Because
Okay.
they're going to be decommissioning the tank and building the laterals. Okay, I was like, I think, yes, okay, I think that's how this is gonna go. Thank you for that. And then as Tommy was describing, subsequently, 20 years down the road, if, a lateral or a connection needs to be built, it may not be that a Marion County engineer is looking at it, it may be that your city engineer is gonna be looking at it. Is that what you're
That's-
envisioning? Okay.
That's a piece of the implementation, but I think, you might have been asking about needing an engineer to review this.
I wasn't sure, yeah, just the way that the language was between the two of you, which one, if we're looking at right now, needing an engineer to, or if that's something that, like you just clarified would be down the road.
Do you have, does Gabe have a city engineer?
I don't know the answer to that.
We have Keller.
Yeah, are they your city engineer, or is that just on the project?
I think
They're-
basically, the
they're-
first,
They're their engineer, okay, so you would, sorry,
where we would need an engineer is when we get the system going and we need a new hookup, there would have to be an engineer doing that. And I would think that whoever's maintaining the whole system would have access to an engineer system-wide for that type of thing, wherever the hookup was. So that's mentioned in here, so I think it's the requirement for hookup for an engineer to check it, and that would be, I would think, part of the operation maintenance infrastructure is access to an engineer that would do that.
so I have the answer, which is that you do have a city engineer, and it's a public works ordinance, so that practices, you have those folks, they just take a look at it so they understand what it is.
Okay,
And then, you obviously you would need your city attorney or an attorney, to tailor it for you. And we have some options though that we can think about with that. So that's that statement. And then yes, you have, as the council, as Mayor Evans was saying, and Tommy was saying, some implementation pieces.
okay.
So, okay, did we answer it?
I think the concern for Gates and the valid concern is they don't have money to go out and hire an extra engineer or an extra attorney. Right, so valid concern, and so they wanna make sure that they're not obligating themselves to an expense that they can't cover.
Right, yeah, that's a good one.
Right, so. We-
Keller has this ordinance, because as the project engineer for the project, they were given a copy of it as a courtesy copy, as they are all the packets for the NSSA board meeting, so. Anyway, that might be a quick conversation. And Peter can kick you in your person.
Okay. Further questions? Anybody have any more questions on this here, discussion for the sewer connection ordinance? If not, we can move forward on the agenda, to, what do we have, item E, or supplemental budget process. Oh, we're all
Yeah,
anxiously anticipating another budget process.
and if it's okay with Chair, I'll take
Go right ahead.
E and F in order, or about the same time. So, you will be running parallel processes. You have received an influx, as you know, of an additional $80,000 from Marion County. In order to spend that, you have to adopt a supplemental budget. Your hearing has been noticed, the proposed budget has been published and noticed. And the hearing is set for next Monday at 12 p.m. For those that want to attend in person, it'll be at the COG offices, and anybody else you can attend virtually. You don't need a full budget process for a supplemental budget, so it's simply a meeting of this board. And the chair will run the hearing and you'll adopt your supplemental budget. I have already prepared the proposed supplemental budget and the script, and then, so the meeting is ready for you to, run it. And then, we've confirmed, attendance from the board members. So on that same day, so any questions about your supplemental budget process?
Are you gonna send out notice of time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Questions about supplemental budget? Okay, and you'll receive the supplemental budget ahead of time, so. tomorrow. I just didn't want to fill your inboxes with all the tonight's email and then also that. At the same time, you'll hold a special session of this board to appoint your, to adopt your schedule and appoint your chair for your 24-25 budget process. So you will need to appoint a budget chair, budget committee chair, and a budget committee. You need 3 members from your community to be a part of your budget committee. So please be thinking and send me the names of those folks. I can send you the schedule ahead of time so that they know what they're committing to in terms of time. Last year, there was a budget committee meeting that lasted 15 minutes, followed by the budget hearing with the board that lasted 25 minutes. So if anything, if last year indicates anything, it's about an hour time commitment plus any time they would need to review the budget. Your budget is very simple because it is very small. And so there aren't very many line items. So it will be very important that you attend next Monday at noon, virtually or in person, both your supplemental budget hearing and your regular board session. You do not need community members next Monday, but you will need them in the future. But just to be clear, I don't need the community members there next Monday. I just need to know their names by next Monday. Okay. Questions on any of that?
If I could, get that, it'll be easier to sell with the schedule,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, the
So-
schedule will help.
If we tell people when they'll be needed and probably how long.
Yep, no problem.
When you're talking about community members, do they have to be in these 4 cities, community members? Okay.
Yes.
So the last time we did this, I was involved, and I think we had Laura Harris from Gates, and we had some Teresa Harmon.
Yep.
From Detroit. I don't remember who else was involved.
I can go back and look at my list, but those 2 are correct.
Well, and I think we sort of did it last minute, and I was able to,
Strong arm.
arm twist, to get a couple of people, but I think it would be nice if we had a representation, rather than just having it all in Detroit by down. I mean, and I'm happy to ask those 2 individuals if they'd like to participate again, be happy to, whoever's in charge would like me to. But I did it last time.
And so we're required to have 3 of our own board members? Or no, we have a quorum of the board, or what?
Not for your budget committee,
Okay,
no. You need to have a budget chair and at least 3 members from the community. It would be good if there was one other person from the board.
Okay.
But you don't need more. Not for the committee meeting. For the committee, it's fine if there's 2, right?
okay.
But in fact, yeah, so,
Apparently this year I'm going to be apparently this year I'm gonna be the chair. You want to be part of your committee?
Sure.
We gotta-
I'm happy to do that.
Hey, we gotta nominate you first next week before you can accept, so.
But it's Monday.
Okay,
I was trying to look up who that other person was real quick, Danny, but I'm not able to find it, so.
Well, guess what I've got? Noon at COG on Monday. Amazing.
okay, so is that everything you have for us on the supplemental budget and the budget process? Wastewater treatment facilities, IGA share out with, for all, it said for discussion, so we're talking the IGA that we've just worked on, like city, no city attorney Jim McGee here said earlier, we had a meeting with, myself, the city recorder, our attorney, is there a 4th person? I think it was just 3 of us pretty much, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was,
Oh, Steve Wynn, yes, Counselor Wynn. And we talked about, some items within that IGA that we, wanted either some additional verbiage or some, a little bit of change of language. Jim took it back to his office, cleaned it up a little bit, and we presented it to the city's planner, who, does a lot of that process work for us as well. And, we figured you'd be getting it back. I was hoping you'd get it on Friday or whatever, but doesn't sound like you did, obviously. I don't know if there's anything in particular that you can recall what we had on there, Jim, for the city of Mill City, but there are a few things in there, concerns. I think one of the things that we wrote on there is we wanted to make note in the recitals that, what we're agreeing to is something that we don't know all the ins and outs of yet. So, we wanted to make sure that that's included in there, so we're stating up front that we're agreeing to something, but we don't know exactly what we're agreeing to, and we want you to or want everybody else to recognize that. We're agreeing to play ball for a while. As what we want to do. Mill City wants to see this happen. They need to see this happen, but we don't want to all of a sudden say sure and then find out we're on the hook for something that, we hadn't anticipated, for sure, so.
Yeah, all the years I've been practicing law, I've never been asked to have a client sign an agreement that's got blanks in it. So that's a little bit disconcerting.
The blanks is like what the sewer bill's gonna be, things like that, you
Well,
know,
there's two areas in there, it says to be determined.
yeah. So some, because the engineering design hasn't even been
Facilities
determined yet.
description to be determined, because we don't know what,
We don't know, I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
Why it's there, it's just, it's a little bit unusual.
yes.
So there's just a few things, I don't think it's gonna be anything too complex or complicated for anybody to get the verbiage, that's fairly agreeable to work on, so.
And I'll call Stacy tomorrow and see where we're at, getting that to you guys.
So, yeah, we should have that to you hopefully very soon. So,
Well, we could have the language changes by the first of the month. It's our intention in Detroit to pass that, at our council meeting on the second Tuesday. And if we have a work session at the end of this month, we could do it then if the language is available.
and quite honestly, everything that I think we had not an objection to, but, we wanted to make note of was to the owner class. And Mill City being the only one in the owner class.
I don't know where I got the information, but I think you guys surfaced some really good questions. And I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, so. We thought so too. What we,
At the right time.
yeah, so obviously, yeah, we just wanna make sure that we're covering our own sixes, so.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, that's good to hear, I think that's what we needed, especially like if you're the only member of the owner class, we need to know what the owner class. Wants.
Right.
There should be no blanks when we get to a final version. If we don't have the ability to identify, for example, the design, we can add language about the process that will identify that. We don't want to just leave TBD anywhere in there, but I think we needed this kind of feedback before we can make sure we dot our I's and cross.
Yeah, I don't think we picked it apart too hard at all, we just, what does this mean in sheriff concerns, and like to see something that addresses that,
Yeah, great.
basically, okay? Further discussion on that IGA, anything anybody would like to talk about? Other than that, I was tickled to see all the other cities, thought it looked good, because for the most part, I thought it was very well done as well. Yeah,
Well, I know that Tony is ready to have a motion on the floor and IDANA as well.
Yeah, we'll do that Gage too, as long as the only thing change the owner class, it doesn't affect us, and it's.
yeah, most of it there, but there was maybe something that'd be in the recitals or something that would be something you'd all be agreeing to as well, but just, like I say, the recitals, I think we just pointed out the fact that we don't know everything yet.
So I think from a timing standpoint, it seems like if you get that back to me, I'll be able to present it, that kind of a final version to this board on May 6th. Your meetings after that or before that?
Well, we could, and it's not, we don't have to, we could do it on the 25th of the 9th.
So I just threw Tony.
I'm sorry, I lied.
Are you first and third?
We could do it on the 23rd or
It's in the
the
second.
14th.
second Tuesday, the 14th, because that's.
So just to offer, so you do have a special session scheduled, April 22nd. So the first part is your supplemental budget, hearing, and then the second part will be to adopt the budget. We could also squeeze in, the adoption of the IGA, the NSSA's adoption of the IGA. Tommy has said he can have it ready by the 22nd. So we could adopt that, and then you could take it to your council, not, you could bless it, not adopt it. And then, you can take those to your councils after that. If we wanna hustle. Okay, but that means that I need at least 4 of you there, but I think as long as I have all 4 of you there. Okay. I need all 4 of you there no matter what. I don't know if I'm saying that.
Physically,
And you can be virtual, but I need all 4 of you there anyway,
I
so,
think Janet said she was gonna be able to attend that one.
okay. You don't have to be there physically, you can zoom in or call in, or you can, you're welcome to come down, yeah. So we'll add that, if I'm seeing head nods, I'll get that on the agenda. Jim will get us Dave's comments ASAP so that we can get those incorporated. I'll work with the county to get facilities defined slightly better, and if it's not possible, then we'll work a placeholder in so that it's not blank, but there will be a process for identifying those facilities, okay? Okay,
All right, when did you say your meetings were again then?
Well, if we have a work session, I don't think it's been decided yet, it would be, where'd that go? Be the 22nd.
But what,
Or the regular meeting would be the, April 2nd.
so your council meetings are second and fourth also?
Second Tuesday,
Just
second, fourth.
second and fourth, so the 14th and 28th of May, okay. So yeah, we have a little bit of time because we will have our meeting here on the 6th as well, so if there's any hiccups, we'll still be able to squeeze it in there somewhere, I think, okay. As the agenda, that pretty much covers it, so I'm gonna invite, since Chris came all the way out there from Marion County, to see if you have anything you'd like to add to tonight's meeting here.
I didn't come to add anything, I just came to listen to what'll be asked of us.
Okay, well,
Chris, is there any new thing on the permitting at all?
Nothing new, still moving along.
still waiting on. I see we also, if anybody else is out there, I see Brian Nicholas from Marion County as well as Mary Camerata from DEQ. If anybody has anything they'd like to add to tonight's meeting, it's your opportunity.
Nothing for me tonight.
Nothing for me either. Thank you.
Well, all right. Well, thank you very much. We're gonna let you guys off the hook. You still got time to go out and mow the lawn while we carry on with an executive session that we're going to adjourn into in accordance with ORS 192.660 subset 2 subset F to consider information or records that are exempt from disclosure by law. So, thank you, everyone. We're gonna move into an executive session as we close